97 South's Storytellers features conversations with professional songwriters and seeks to pull back the curtain on the art, craft, and career of songwriting. We'll bring you to those magical moments of creativity that have delivered the inspiring songs that make up the soundtrack of our lives. I'm Paul McGuire, and today's guest is Rik Emmett. It is certain that guitar virtuoso and Hall of Famer Rik Emmett does indeed have the magic power of the music in him. As principal songwriter, vocalist, and guitarist for the iconic rock group Triumph, Rik contributed to the group's impressive legacy of songs and gold and platinum album recordings. His prodigious and eclectic output as an independent artist and guitarist includes a score of commercially and critically successful singles and album releases, and has informed Rik's passion and long tenure as an educator. Okay, so let's talk about the business, if we can call it that, of Triumph, and you and your indoctrination into that world.
Yes.
Yeah. What's day one? What's the first phone call? How do they know about you?
Well, Neil Dixon and Steve Propaz had this solid gold management kind of thing.
Okay.
And they had connections to a lot of bars in Ontario where they would then sort of be agents that would provide bands to people. You know, a guy owns a bar in Brockville, and he doesn't want to have to be trying to chase around trying to find bands. So here's these guys from Toronto that go, oh, we'll take care of that for you. There's no problem. We'll put bands in there every week. So that was what the scene was like in the mid-70s. So
mid-70s.
Yeah. So they had a stable of bands, and we became one of them. And they never did a damn thing to manage your career or build you up. But they did.
They just filled the slot. They had whatever version of Excel spreadsheet was back then. They filled the slot.
And they had a solid gold records thing that was starting, and they were going to sign acts to that. And so that was their development plan.
Yeah.
But we didn't see any of that happening when I was in this band called Act 3. So Gil and Mike came. I was playing a bar called the Hollywood Tavern in Etobicoke with Act 3, and they came and saw me, and then it was like, hey, would you like to come and we'll have a get together and we'll jam and we'll have a meeting. And they didn't impress me much when we played. I'll be honest, there's a documentary that's out now, right? Yeah. And in the documentary, there's a great scene where Michael Cole is talking about Triumph, sort of talking its way into playing at the Concert Bowl Maple Leaf Gardens for the first time. And Cole goes, their music was about here. He goes, but they were so pushy. They were so pushy. They were like up here. And I'm going, that's totally it, And that was the first impression that I had. They sat me down at a table like this, and they were putting contracts for gigs. They didn't even have a band. And they had a record contract with Attic Records. I'm going, how does this even happen? But it was because Mike had connections as a promo guy, and he knew Tom Williams at Attic, and one thing had led to another. So it was like, well, we'll put out a single, and if the single works, then maybe we'll do an album with you. And the contract kind of laid that out, and I go, boy, it's a pretty good vision. They really do have a...
That's incredible. The Smoke and Mirrors works on the people inside it as well.
It does.
Right?
Yeah. And Smoke and Mirrors is a good way, especially for a band like Triumph, which was all about sort of be larger than life, make people believe that it's larger than life. And then, inside the band, it was like, Rik, you got to believe you're larger than life. You really are. That's what's going to have to happen here, And it took me several years to, I think from 75, inception, first album, 76, the first song that I wrote that was a song that fit was Hold On. Well, I think maybe Lay It on the Line came before Hold On, writing-wise.
Okay.
But Hold On was the one that was like, we've named this thing Triumph, and we're going to be larger than life. Smoke and mirrors, flash bots, laser lights, dry ice floating out, all of this stuff. What's a song that works with that? You have to write your way into that. And the Hold On to Your Dreams was like, this is the right feel. Like, this band should be about inspiration, motivation, that kind of stuff. That was the feeling.
That moment of self-awareness, though, that you've got the ability to get a message out there, that's amazing. To say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this message out there. Hold on. That's not just hey, this thing happened to me. I'm gonna dot some stuff down in my journal about this thing that happened to me. This is like, I'm now gonna send a message out to the people. That's when you become a songwriter. That's when you, right?
I mean, but of course, when you're in that environment, there's all kinds of songs that are about, hey, look at me, I'm in a band. Hey, let's party all night. Hey,
Sure.
Hey, we're coming to your town. We're.
But this is a message. This song that you had was a message.
We did have a party band kind of, like Gil liked to write those kinds of songs that came out of the school of Chuck Berry, Howlin' Wolf, kind, which was a thing that fed rock and roll and certainly was a big part of it. And you couldn't ignore that. There's, I think Triumph had some blues in it that, and R&B kind of stuff, which was
the Rolling Stones, that kind of vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But I was much more of a Beatles kind of guy, and certainly had
Isn't
gone
that interesting?
into the world of prog, like prog rock. I liked it.
Sure. Rush.
I loved it. Yeah. And
Yes.
my favorite band when I was in high school was Yes. And they had this very positive kind of spiritual message kind of
Of course
thing.
they did. Their band was called Yes.
Yeah.
It's like the most positive word that you can
Exactly.
try to call our band after like the most positive thing you can say.
Which again, like in this whole thing about bands and writing music in bands and songs in bands, like prog wasn't necessarily about songs. Prog was more about concept.
Yeah.
And then within that band, it was actually Chris Squire's band, the bass player, as much as it was John Anderson, the lead singer. Anderson was the spiritual kind of, hey, let's set up a backstage. We'll have a tent, and I can't think of the right word. Teepee.
Oh, right.
So he'd have
Yeah.
and he'd be doing some smoke in the teepee and
Yes.
having a spiritual cleansing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that was the singer. Squire is going, let's go down to the pub.
Yeah.
Just get a point,
Yeah.
so there was I think that's one of the things of when you're writing for a rock band, you're going to be finding, a little of this, a little of that.
So as far as your, like, so many of the songwriters that I've talked to over the years have talked about like this need. It didn't matter if one person was going to hear it, if nobody was going to hear it, or if 10,000 people were going to hear it. Like the idea of an idea getting out there. Mm-hmm. There must have been a moment where you thought, an ego comes into it for sure, where you're like, this idea that I've got, I'm confident enough that this is a solid idea that I want to share it with people.
And you're touching on something it's a real fundamental that exists right when you start.
Yeah.
And then it's all the way through, and even in the the golden years of your career,
Yeah.
It's still a thing. Like I've written a book of poetry and put it out, and you have to sort of clear that hurdle of, well, am I going to call myself a poet? Am I going to take this step?
Yeah.
So, but I taught at Humber College for 20 years, and direction, art direction, career direction. I did it all. I taught music business. I taught songwriting, and that thing of ego that you're talking about. But let me just walk it back.
Yeah.
Because when you're first starting, I'm 10 years old, and I get a guitar and I learn a couple of chords.
Who buys you the guitar, by the way?
Oh, it was a hand-me-down. My grandfather got it out of his sister's closet, and it had a hula dancer and palm trees.
Your grandfather got it out of his sister's closet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep track of this.
Yeah.
Okay. And it had a Hawaiian.
Yeah, and it had like a rope for the strap, and it was like a catalog. A 40s catalog.
And why were you attracted to this instrument?
Come on, the Beatles were on Sullivan. You know what I mean?
Okay, gotcha.
It was 1963.
Yes.
Another step back. When I was 7, 8 years old, I was incredibly shy. And my mother said, well, I'm going to take you to choir practice, and you can really sing. I'm going to get you. And so I was this little kid sitting in with the first sopranos at the church, and I was singing in the choir. I'd go to choir rehearsals, and then it was like, oh, Christmas pageant. Well, you're the one that's got the talent. But this gift that I had, this ability to get up in front of people and sing, so that fed the thing. So anyway, so now I get the guitar.
So it was your voice? All of this started with your voice?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I sang in the Kiwanis choirs at Massey Hall when I was 8, 9 years old.
Rock and roll, Rik Emmett, the first thing that started was your voice.
Yeah.
In church choir.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, I don't know if it's incredible.
No, it is. That's incredible.
It's my story.
Yeah,
It's what it was. And that was the thing that sort of gave me a certain amount of confidence, so that now I get this guitar, learn a couple of chords, I go, I'm gonna write a song. And I write the song. And this is so fundamental. I play the song for my mom. And my mom goes, "You are a genius. You are incredible. I'm so proud of you. You are so great." And that's just a human thing. But you need somebody to be a fan.
What was the song, Rick?
It was called "Soldier is a Man." It had a C and an A minor.
Okay. You remember the chords?
Oh, geez, yeah. The verse went, from the C to the A minor, and then the chorus came and it got heavy. It went from the A minor to the C.
Yeah. Yeah. And your mom loved it.
Yeah, it was a horrible thing, but the song was terrible. But that's not the point. The point is somebody's got to sort of be patting you on the back and making your head swell.
But they were supportive of you.
My mom was. My dad, my dad kind of went, and then even later in life, my dad's filling up the Rambler to drive to some Friday night gig somewhere, and with the PA sticking out the trunk. And, he was supportive in a certain way, but he never believed it was ever going to, until, I started playing in bands and I was making more money by playing a Friday, Saturday than I would ever have made doing anything else. But I swear to God, this is a true thing. It was about 1987, 80, somewhere around there. Okay. And I bought them a house. Yep. And my dad said something to me along the lines, half joking, but, so this music thing seems to be working out, God. I'd already bought him a car. A car wasn't enough. A house was the thing that kind of made him, I guess you're going to have a career here, eh?
I'm honestly not trying to make light of it, but are we all always doing that, trying to get the affirmation? Or like a little bit of that.
Well, your
what did
question
he do for a
before
living?
was about ego, and certainly there's a thing there. But there's also this other thing that I'm going to mention, and I'm we're bouncing around. When I would be with students, I would say your ego, it's an important thing, but you need just enough to get you up there to be wanting to do it. And you will get affirmation from an audience. That can happen. Yeah. But that's not really you can't fall in love with that. It's dangerous. That can lead to other kinds of problems. Really what you want is to have the music speaking to you in a way that you go, I've validated what I set out to do. The work itself, the process is giving me a great deal of gratification, of affirmation. Like I'm feeling good about the work that I'm doing, And I would tell students all the time, there's got to be a humility here. It's not just ego. I like that. The humility has to, so there's a balance. Yeah. The humility has to be, it's an infinite task. The writing of music, the making of music, you're staring into the face of God. It's infinite. So how are you going to be egotistical about that? Yeah. You need to be humble about that so that you're open to what the music offers you, what the inspiration, the muses, terpsichore and Arato.
Whatever you're channeling. I like the balance of ego and humility. Both important.
Yeah, exactly.
Both vital.
Yes. Yeah, you need them both. And you have to try and keep it inbound. Like you're walking a high wire and there's no safety net.
And then add band members into this.
Oh, yeah.
Then you add the dynamic of people who are going to play the parts that you think that hey, by the way, drummer, I think you should do this. And he's like, well, I was thinking about this. And then there's that whole thing.
Oh, and never mind,
And your band is called Triumph.
Now you get to a certain level, and now you've got record company guys that are going, this is what we can get on the radio. And then you got managers, and they're going, well, this is really how it works. And so now there's these pressures that then in Triumph's career, we are in a stage where MCA had bought the contract from RCA, and MCA is going, well, we're going to have to bring in like a big name producer. And the big name producer, and Ron Nevison came to our project, the guy that had resurrected Starship and Heart. And, I mean, he was a recording engineer that had worked on some Who albums. And, yes, he was respected. But he had this thing of like, I'm going to tell this band what kind of image they're going to be projecting with these songs that I'm bringing. And you go, I can write. You know that. Like, I know how to sing. I've been singing ever since I was about 7 years old. Like, I don't necessarily need you to tell me how, but the political pressures and things.
The intersection of art and commerce at that point, right? You're like,
and in truth, as my life has gone on, and I got further and further away from being the rock star in spandex pants, you realize that you're making artistic choices where, like, I go, I think a jazz record, jazz guitar is really, it compels me. It's calling to me. I should go for this. And of course, you're going from, rock music is like 60% of the market to jazz, which is 2%. So, and then I go, I'm going to write a poetry book. So it's like, oh boy,
Well, okay, so here's one of the things that I love about so many of the artists that I've talked to over the almost 30 years that I've been doing this, is that most of the guys that are men and women that are really, really successful, there was some abandon that was in there at the beginning. Sure, there were moments of like, you're in your bedroom with a guitar and you had an idea and you're like, oh my God, this sounds really good with that guitar line, da 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 da. And then, am I giving this idea less than the emotional weight that it deserves by putting it out there with a band and making it and putting a hook on it and do it? Like, this is the poetry.
Yes.
So this is the idea of selling out is ridiculous, because the idea is that people need to hear it in order for it to be art to begin with, right? And you guys did that. So there must have been a point where you guys were like, yeah, this is a business. Do you remember that moment where you...
Well, no, because it was...
You just did it.
And it came organically. You're in a bar and you're playing for people and you're realizing...
They're singing the words back.
Well, or this song's never... It doesn't go over at all.
Oh, the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that teaches you something.
Sure.
Like, but this one that goes hump, 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 and it just won't stop. They seem to be nodding in agreement to that,
Yeah.
So there's certain things that... just you're going through the stages and the business is teaching you it itself.
Yeah. You can be precious or not.
But your point is a really good one. It's a valid one. It's a strong
thank God.
one. There has to be something in a song
Right.
that reaches out emotionally and connects to people in a way that they go, this song is meeting me where I live. This song is...
It doesn't matter if I've experienced that exact thing, but the meaning is universal.
And you want that emotion. You want to make that emotional connection. That's the biggest thing of all with songs. You can do it with 2 chords. You can do it with 1 chord. Like Chain of Fools, Aretha Franklin is a 1 chord song, Showbiz Kids, Steely Dan, it's a 1 chord song intentionally. Well, no, we can make a great recording, a great song out of... It doesn't need a lot of chords.
Yeah.
And, you're talking to a guy here, like there's some songs I write where I love how many more chords can I fit in there? Because I would really like to
because
fit...
you're a guitar player, and that's what guitar players do.
Well,
you guys are like, you guys have...
Not
like,
all of them.
Not all of them.
No, a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of player is not a guy that goes, hey, I need 1,000 chords.
Yeah, that's true.
But,
Okay.
a player like John Pizzarelli Jr., like he likes a lot of chords. And so do I, a part of me does. There's another part of me as a writer where I totally appreciate Bob Dylan. I respect it, and I sometimes try to write in that ballpark, but I tended to be a kind of writer where I bounced around. I would be here, and then I would, because I'm a musician, I would then kind of go over to here. Now, here's an interesting story.
Yeah, please.
Musician. Somebody once was interviewing Roger Waters, and they said, and you're like, one of the most famous musicians in the world. And he says, I'm not a musician. And they go, I beg your pardon, like...
I'm a composer? Was he...
Well, that was his point that he was making is, look, a musician is somebody, you put something in front of them, and they can sight read it. And you can say, well, can you try it in E flat? And they can transpose it. And
sure.
A musician is someone that can take input and out it goes, they translate, and he goes, I can't do that. I can't sight read. I can only play what I write. I'm an artist. I do what I do. I don't do what anybody else does. And I thought, that's a really good clarification and understanding that writers need to know. They need to know that you are really trying to do this very subjective thing in order to come up with whatever it is that you come up with. So back to your point about, making that connection.
Yeah.
And do we need it, Amazon or Molson's or somebody, and Triumph had tour sponsors. We were one of the bands that really pioneered that, In fact, I think the first tour sponsor we had was Converse running shoes.
Let's go. I love the high tops.
In the United States, yeah.
The amazing thing about the Roger Waters story is that it's kind of like listening to a self-help book from Elon Musk a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like Roger Waters talking to people about songwriting is like, you've made an incredible impact on the world of art with your music. Now for you to say that it doesn't really, like for you to take the importance away from the songwriting or the craft of songwriting, whatever.
No, I don't think he was taking the, I think what he was trying to do was say, look, I'm not, I think there was a humility in what he was saying.
Okay, good.
I'm not a musician. I'm this guy that sort of just sits down and figures out my own little sandbox.
I remember interviewing Anthony Hopkins for a movie junket once. And he's like, I'm not an actor, really. I just say words. I'm like, it seems like that a little bit to me. There's some, I mean, again, asking people, and again, I'm in that position with you right now. I'm asking you to be so self-reflective on your art, the thing that has
I don't mind that.
No, I know.
And of course, I taught for such a long period of time that I can fall into the, becoming the dog up on its hind legs, barking away,
But there's an ethereal thing to it. There's a thing that is not a physical thing. There is a moment. There's I don't want to say that it's spiritual necessarily.
I think you should.
You really?
Yep.
There's a moment when songwriters are in a moment in between sounds that are made when you grab onto something and you're like, that's perfect.
Yep.
And that is what you fight for, I think, as musicians and songwriters. Am I wrong?
No. Fighting is part of it, but also sometimes surrendering.
Okay, right.
So that you're going to allow it to happen. See, and I would tell students, first of all, you're going to have to give yourself permission to be great.
Oh, I like that.
And that's a hard thing to do.
I like that.
To find that thing and just say, okay, I'm capable of reaching these lofty spiritual heights. And when I say spirit, I'm not talking religion necessarily. I'm talking the human spirit.
Yeah.
So just that whole thing of, climbing a mountain, why do people do that? And writing songs
you unlock an ability in people when you're talking to your students. You're like, you allow them to go do that. Go be great.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a cool thing.
And then this humility thing comes into play. Okay, I'm great, but the song is greater. And that's a very important thing to understand, that you're chasing this thing, and that thing can talk to you. It will actually tell you, this is the right thing. There was once a thing I read that the conductor Bernstein was talking about Beethoven.
Yep.
And he said the thing about Beethoven is it's flowing along, and something happens, and you realize the choice that he made as a composer is exactly the right thing that should have happened. So there's an inevitability that happens in this music, the choices that he makes. And there's a composer named Aaron Copland that wrote a book called What to Listen For in Music, which I think all young music students should have to read this book. And he talks about la grande ligne, the long line, the big line. And so that there's this thing, this thread, the golden thread that runs through what you've done. It makes sense. It has an integrity to itself. And that's what good writers have to figure out. What is that? What choice should I make here? Oh, I don't know where the melody should go. Oh, I don't know what chords. But well, what style did you Is Converse your sponsor? There's all of these things that you have to weigh, and then you weigh them. And who's my bass player? Can he cut that part? If I was in a band with Paul McCartney, oh my God, imagine how many options you've got just because you're working with that kind of talent. If I had a voice like Bob Dylan's, I would have made different choices, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
But you in a time created art that stands up today, that when people listen to Triumph songs, when they listen to the songs that you created, there is no doubt that they, not only do they sound great today, like the day that they were mastered and came out of the studio, but they were inspiring in the moment and have lasted. That doesn't happen for everybody. No. Nobody says, "Oh man, it's aged well." You know that term that hasn't aged well. That's been around. Triumph songs have aged well.
Here's the tangent that's jumping into my mind.
Okay,
now. Like you and I before we got on here, we were talking about baseball.
Yeah,
and I played a lot of sports when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and I coached. You know, my own kids, a little bit of soccer, a lot of baseball.
Yeah,
sports teaches you something about being in the moment and it also teaches you a certain kind of integrity. It teaches you about kind of the ethics of how this works because, you know, luck is playing a part, but how much did you practice?
Yeah.
You know, all of these things. And it relates to a music and a songwriting kind of thing. So this longevity that you're talking about that's in the songs.
Timelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is because I had an awareness of integrity and like not in a conscious kind of way, but when you're a 7-year-old kid and you're singing in the church choir and the organ is, you know, he's pulling out some stops, he's playing some things and you're going, oh, what's that buzz that's coming up my ass? Like, oh, this is so good.
I know.
And then you go, okay, so you start to understand.
13 years of Catholic school, by the way. I love the music. That's my favorite thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets you to a point where you're kind of having an understanding, and it's more corporeal than it is intellectual.
Yeah,
you know, your body kind of knows this thing. There's an instinct you kind of get.
Yeah.
So I had that, and I think, you know, despite myself and Triumph, sometimes those things would find their way into a song so that the song would have a kind of an integrity, and it would still work, you know.
You knew that at the time that you were doing it? You're like, this is important. We got to get this in there.
I felt well, yes, but I think more it was like the music was telling me it was good. No, this song it's holding together well. This song has better integrity than the one that I wrote 2 weeks ago, than the one that I wrote 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I'm learning something here. I'm moving forward. These things are getting better. Like in the Triumph documentary, there's a moment where you know, they're talking about me bringing Lay It on the Line to them.
Yeah.
And Mike and Gil both go like, hey, Rico's getting better at writing songs. And it's true. It's true. That song still stands up, and because it has an integrity to it, there's a marriage of melody to chord changes to what the lyric is about. That, you know, here's this guy and he's saying like, I wish you'd just be honest with me. I wish you would just lay it on the line. And lay it on the line is a kind of a cliche, but cliches are to me, they're perfectly fine for songwriters. I think country music is full of them all the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I mean, how many songs on the chart at any given point in time are talking about trucks and
booze?
Yeah. Like, but it's because that belongs to that style. It's endemic to what that is. And you're going to be able to touch people where they live if you're talking about the things that are part of their lives. So, you know, everybody struggles with the idea of honesty. Should I tell the truth, or should I tell a little white lie?
You should tell the truth.
Yeah, well,
you should tell the truth. I mean, that's it. And I've talked to so many songwriters over the years who are often surprised by the fact that things that are so specific to them, that have happened to them, become so universal or ubiquitous. Like that, oh my God, this thing that happened to me, whether the specific thing is relatable or not, the emotion of it is relatable.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what you guys did. That's what you did. Oh,
well, thank you. Yes, you know, I mean, you get lucky sometimes.
Okay,
you know,
you got lucky a lot.
Yeah, but here's something that I used to tell students all the time. I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
The greatest batting average of all time, Ty Cobb, .367. So he failed more than 7 times out of 10. So, you know, you look at that and you have to say to yourself, get used to failure. Get used to songs that don't, for some reason, they just don't work. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into the garbage.
I'm wondering, Rik, when you go out and write, are you a guy that has an idea and wants to pursue that individually, or do you need collaborators to bring that across the line, to bring the no pun intended? To bring
I've tried both things. As I got older, I got to the point where I sometimes really enjoyed collaborating.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Like guys that at the beginning, it's like, this is my art, this is my poetry, this is my da-da-da-da, and then, it's fun to talk to other human beings as they age.
Yeah. Now, I mean, certainly my experience of being in Triumph, I found frustrations, based on just who the other guys were. Like, when a band breaks up and they say, well, they had creative differences.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
But we also had political differences. We also had ethical, moral kinds of differences. It was a complex thing, and you're living in each other's pockets, and in Triumph's case, those guys were managing my career. They were the managers of the band, Gil more than Mike. And it was like, I don't think I want these guys managing my life and my career anymore, So that led me to go, well, yeah, I want to be I want to be boss. I want to be a benevolent dictator of my own world. So I step out. But one of the first things I did was, you know what? I'm going to go do some co-writing with Eddie Schwartz and with Graham Shaw and Bob Halligan Jr. Because Bob Halligan Jr. is written with Kiss and Judas Priest. And so I want to see what it's like to co-write with guys.
So you were ready at that point to step off of stage.
I just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn what it would be like to be out of a rock band and into different types of worlds. But then I realized I really think I want to write on my own. I want to be my own boss, and I don't want somebody leaning over my shoulder, making changes and things.
Yeah.
So, and I went through a long period of that. And then the business, life is going along, and guys that were, old fart rock stars in spandex pants from the 70s and 80s, it's like, well, you're passé now. We don't want you. Radio's not going to play you. You're not going to get a record deal. So then I go, okay, well, I'll go indie. I'll make my own records in my own basement, and and so, and I made far more music after I left Triumph than when I was in it. Did I get on the charts? Did I sell 1 million units? No.
Yeah.
But I always sold enough that I got my money back. I was making a little profit and go out and playing shows, and I was doing fine. I had a career, and it was a modest one, but I got to do music, write songs that, So then you go.
What were you writing about? What was inspired? What the stories were you telling?
Well, the first things were more musician kinds of records. I started making a classical guitar record. I made a jazz archtop kind of a record, a blues record.
Yeah.
I was going into styles and just
so instrumental
self-indulging a lot.
Okay.
But also, if a tune popped out at me, I was going to finish it. I was going to try and write it.
The poetry was there.
Yeah, and then I went into singer-songwriter mode after that. And so then there were some records that were very singer-songwriter-y, Paul Simon, James Taylor-ish.
Love it.
Yes. And I did that. And then I was starting to get, we're going to get Jane Bennett come in and play some sax. I'm going to get Ian Thomas to come and sing some backgrounds because he's a pal of mine. So these things are starting to happen. I go, I should maybe collaborate again. And so then one of the guys that I toured with, Dave Dunlop, if I got to the point where instead of going out and playing solo shows, if I had somebody to play off of, a piano player or a guitar, it allowed the show to have a little more dimension, and I enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah. And Ian came to one of my shows. He goes, "Why do you give the sideman so much latitude? Like you give them so much time." And he goes, "Like man," but Ian had been a solo artist all of his life. Yeah. To him it was all about, how can I get a little more of me in there? And I was getting to the point in my life where I was like, it's not about me. It's more about the tunes. And so then Dave and I started doing some collaborating, and it was great. We made we called this little thing the Strung Out Troubadours, and we'd go out and play the gigs and sell the CDs, at the table in the
cover
lobby.
your costs, do all that stuff. Yeah,
and it was fun, and they were good records, and they were good songs. Then I get to a point where I go, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to get back to satisfying my own writing urges and following my own instincts and stuff. So
is there a difference for you as a songwriter and a storyteller, being on stage and performing something that you have written versus something that you are interpreting for somebody else?
Yeah, and I didn't do a lot of covers in my life, but when I did, I would give myself to them as a musician, as an artist.
Conduit.
Yeah, like, but in my own way. I'm gonna, like one of the songs that I used to do, and I would put my guitar down, and my piano player would play "Can't Make You Love Me." It's a Alan Reed, Mike Shamlin, Reed and Shamlin, but of course the definitive version is Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
And you're never going to do it better than her.
No.
Like her version of it is sublime. But it's like, I got to find that place. So when I would do that song, it was like, I got to get to that place where I can give myself goosebumps. If I can do that, then I'm doing the tune justice,
That's amazing.
I don't know about amazing.
No. But that's the.
To me, I think that's the. If you're an actor, and you're out there and if you can't get yourself to the point where there's tears, then they're real. Like you didn't do the job.
Yeah, that's good.
So
you never lost that. You never lost that through the entire struggle of the commerce and art and all of that. You never lost the love of music that way.
Oh no. But it became actually a liability. It became dangerous for me. Like I was starting to have. Well, I was getting to the point where I was having psychological issues, and it was just
because of music.
And the more probably, I think. Traveling and airports and hotels and I'm getting older, and now it's harder to hit the high notes, and it's these guitar pieces that I've written for myself that are wickedly hard. It's like now I can't play them anymore because I'm getting some arthritis and this finger here.
I've said this to artists that I've interviewed over the years. They're like, "Why did you make that so high? Why did you write that? Why put it in a lower key? Make it easier on yourself. What are you doing?"
Yeah, and there's tricks. You start tuning, the guitar goes down a half step.
Oh man!
You start transposing the old Triumph songs are now down a minor third. Yeah. Like all of these things are starting to happen, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm on stage and I'm really nervous. And so you're going, okay, this is not good. I used to be cocky and confident, and now I'm feeling, vulnerable. And so now emotionally, it can
like almost like you had to play a part.
Yeah.
Like I'm up here now I'm not being me, the authentic me. I now have to play a role that I've defined for myself that everybody expects me to be able to fill.
But let me ask you something.
Yeah.
The authentic me.
Yeah.
When you're with your kids, you don't behave the same way that when you're in your bedroom alone with your wife, or, if you're out having a beer with the boys and you're watching sports on TV.
So what you're saying, there are roles that we play.
Shakespeare,
there are roles that we play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We act, we behave.
Yeah.
There's characters and personalities that we take on in certain settings,
If we take the 30,000 foot view of your career, though, and the idea that there's this guy that was pretty good at music, and I kind of like the idea of poetry and storytelling, and turned it into the rock godness of it all, the idea of triumph. And when people talk about Triumph, there is rock godness that is attributed to that band. And the fact that you are such a well-rounded individual and human being, it's got to blow your mind that the idea of storytelling brought you to this incredible place in life.
Yeah, I don't know if it blows my mind. But part of it is because I'm that guy that you just described.
Yeah.
And I'm not that guy that you just described. In other words, there's a scene in Groundhog Day.
Give me it.
And Bill Murray's sitting with the girl, and she goes, "So you're telling me you're God? That's what you're telling me, you're God." And he goes, "Well, I'm not the God. I'm a God. I'm a God." And whenever people say to me, "Oh, rock god," I go, "Yeah, well, I've met many rock gods, and I can tell you they're not very godly."
Yeah.
Let me sort of try and put it in this kind of context.
Please, yeah.
Because there are documentaries out there, and one of the things they go, greatest moment in Us Festival, 1983, 250 to 400,000 people, and it was surreal. It was and it just so happened that afternoon, when I played my guitar solo as part of the set, I had a pretty good day. I had a pretty good day.
Okay.
I kind of nailed it, So it doesn't happen every day, but then there's a video of it that comes out on DVD and now other guitar players are walking around going, "Yeah, this guy, You know, but part of that is because, well, he wrote for Guitar Player magazine and he won some awards and some contests. And so then people are kind of, it's their perception that I'm a god, you know. And am I going to actually buy into somebody else's perception of who I am? And I go, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that even if they're partners of mine in a band.
Yeah.
I go, I'm sorry. I don't want to be what you think I should be.
Can I ask you though, the affirmation from an audience or peers, whatever, it helps though, right?
Of
right?
course, of course.
Next time you go out on stage, you're a little bit looser.
And in the documentary, I talk about this thing about, you know, like if you and I are sitting here and we're having a conversation, and then the conversation kind of gets up to a certain point, and we're really, the energy is being exchanged
I
here.
like to think that's what we're doing right now.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so this rises to a kind of a level where,
A
you know, when
crescendo,
they're-
you might say.
well, whatever. They're editing it later, and they go, this is going to be easy. And it's because this thing has happened. So you're in a concert and you're playing and the audience is with you and they're singing along to the chorus or whatever.
Yeah.
But you just, that thing is starting to happen and you're going, okay, this is on a higher level now than I could have necessarily done. I
course.
needed the audience to kind of make it happen on this level. I needed the lights. I needed this giant PA. I needed this Gibson Les Paul. Like, you know, I needed these Converse sneakers. You know, like,
Right.
But you get it. It's
I
like
get it.
all of these
get it.
things are kind of integrating
Yeah.
in order to make this energy thing happen. And when it does happen, it's a beautiful thing. Like, man, when you are, you know, kids going up to the on deck circle.
Yeah.
And you go, look, don't think. Just
Don't think.
see the ball and hit. Just see the ball, hit the ball. Just swing. And
Were you at practice today?
Well,
that's exactly what we say.
And
all the
you
time.
were talking earlier about abandon.
Yeah.
Like, just let the game come to you. Don't try to force the game. Like a kid's going to a ground ball, you go, no, let the ball come. Like you don't. There's some balls you do have to go get, but there's some balls where you just let them come. And if you try too hard, you're going to screw it up. So let the game come to you.
Yeah.
It's also part and parcel of the chemistry of how these moments occur. And music is very much like that, that it has to have this kind of flow where you're in the music is in you. You've got an audience that's listening to it and they're contributing to this atmosphere. Like that's the beautiful thing about it. And of course, songwriting, you know, to go back to what we're supposed to be telling stories.
I know.
About, you wrote this. You created the script.
It didn't exist before you wrote it.
So back to this thing about playing God, you know, and being a God. Like every songwriter, in a way, is like they're kind of going, and I'm going to take this character and put him over here, and then I'm going to make him say this, and then I'm going to, you know, like you're playing God.
Yeah.
But it's in a, you know, you're doing it in a little small kind of thing. And you got to make it work in that little small thing. It has to have the integrity of that little small thing. So that's the story that you're telling. And if you wrote the script and now you're playing your song in front of people and they're going, yeah, man,
So
great
beautiful.
script. I'm in your story now. I'm so totally in your story. And you're going, yes, you are.
You ever get?
And I am a God.
You ever get? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It has shown you the four corners of the planet. And unfortunately or fortunately, you're imprinted on everybody's brain, man. Like the people that love the band. It's a gift though. You got to understand that the thing that you did that seemed, maybe didn't seem at the time, but that can be seen as selfish. The art, the indulgence of art. I'm going to do this. Ultimately gives people so much joy. And that's what your band did. And that's what you've done over the years that you were involved in it. And I know it was not done altruistically, fully altruistically, because you're an artist and you're doing what you're called to do. The beautiful side effect of that is the joy that you've given everybody over the years. And it's quite something. I hope you recognize that.
Yeah. And like everybody sort of embellishes stories as they go, this is the sort of thing about, you know, being a rock star. Or it's like, it's something, it's like branding, right? It's like it's in somebody's head. There's a guy named Peter Spellman used to teach music business at Berkeley.
Okay.
And he had a book. And when I was doing my music business course, you know, I'm reading books in order to try and bring salient things to the table.
Yeah.
So he had this story about peanut butter. So a guy's running a peanut butter business because he's trying to teach about branding. And so a guy's got a peanut, and it's not going well. He inherited the business from his dad or something, and it's going bad, and it's losing money. And so the guy goes, well, last ditch, I got my last $100,000. What am I going to do? He pulls all the peanut butter back off the shelves, changes the labels on them, and on the label he puts new, improved, gourmet peanut butter. And when he puts it back out, with gold leaf on the fancy, packaging, and then bumps the price so that the other jars of peanut butter are $5, his is 10.
Yeah.
And I would say to my students, okay, so pick your ending. Does he make $1 million? Does he does he go bankrupt? Like, what happens? And I said, do you think what he did was ethical? I would say that's to students.
Wow.
That was my question. Like, did he do something ethical? Now I got mostly jazz students, they're learning, that's the pedagogy they're learning. So, but these are artists, to be artists.
So they would say that's unethical.
Training. Most of them go, this
Right.
is horrible.
Yes.
Did he change the peanut butter inside the jar? And I go, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
And they go, well, then that's unethical.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have done that. And I go, okay, but you want to be in the music business. I want you to understand this, okay? He did change the peanut butter because he changed the label and he changed the price. So what he was doing is changing the positioning of the peanut butter in everybody else's head. And that's what the music business does a lot of the time. That's not the way the real world actually works. And if you're going to be a rock star and you start believing that thing that's in other people's heads, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's because you're not that.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as a storyteller?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that. I like telling stories.
Yeah.
I like telling jokes. I like most of all, I like songs.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm best at.
What an amazing confluence then of this idea of the ability to tell stories and your guitar aptitude. What a beautiful marriage that is.
Do you want me to give you some insight into that too?
Please,
You want
yes.
to talk about beautiful confluence?
Yes.
I'm left-handed. And when I'm not left-handed. I'm something called dextro-sinistral. So
Bless you.
yeah. Right hand, fine motor control. I write with my right hand. I eat with a fork with my right hand.
Golf.
I want to do left. See,
Batting practice.
Left. When I throw a baseball, left. When I kick the soccer ball, my dominant foot is my left. So left is gross motor control.
Okay.
Right is fine motor control.
Yeah.
And so when I first pick up a guitar, there's Paul McCartney on TV, and he, lefty, and
Playing the
guitar,
Rickenbacker. Yeah.
and he's lefty, and I got the guitar, and I'm lefty, and I'm doing that. And so I win 8 free lessons at the Regency School of Music in West End, Toronto, because I knew how many notes are in a major scale. You can win 8 free lessons. So how many notes are in a major scale if you can win 8 free lessons? I go. So I win the contest, and I'm pretty sure it was, if somebody filled out the form and sent it in, they were going to go, congratulations.
Yeah.
They're just trying to drum up, students.
Yeah.
The guy was handing them out in the schoolyard on I was going to call it the blow off because of concerts. But, when school's out at the end of the day,
Yeah.
he's there handing. Okay. So I go and I go to my first lesson, and I got the thing in my lap, and I'm ready to go. And he goes, no. And he takes it and he turns it around in my hands. And I go, oh no, this is awkward. This is really weird.
Oh, he knew.
And he goes, look, his name was Jack Arsenault. Jack was a left-handed guy who played guitar right-handed. And he said, give me a month. He says, I guarantee you will be far better than your right-handed pals. And it's because your strong hand gets to be on the fretboard. So the stuff that, right-handed guys are going, oh, this is so awkward. I can't make this happen. But give me a couple of weeks and I can make that happen. Like I could be on stage playing, Triumph gigs and going, oodly, 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 oodly with one hand, And the guys in the band used to call it dwiddly, dwiddly. Rick was really good at dwiddly, dwiddly.
Oh my God.
And I can do this all day. because this is my strong hand.
Yeah, but it took that guy, that instructor, to see that.
I hate to blow the cover off of the rock and roll industry, but
Yeah.
Eddie Van Halen,
Yeah.
Steve Morse,
Yeah.
Richie Blackmore. You want me to keep going? Waddy Wachtel, left-handed guys that play right-handed. It's true.
I love it.
Like so, but what are the odds that I get a guy? He's a lefty that plays righty, and so this is my right at the fundamental, the entry door into the thing. It's like, okay, we're gonna give you a lucky break here.
There's a lot of lucky breaks that have happened. It seemed, and by the way, there's no such thing as luck. It's what is it again? It's preparation and
meets opportunity.
Thank you. Whatever.
Yeah. Well,
so you obviously were there. You were doing that stuff. But there's a bunch of sliding door moments in your life.
In my second book of poetry, which I'm working on, I came up with a phrase in one of the poems, and I called it serendipity doodah. And I think there are things sometimes where it's just a lucky coincidence, a fluke of the universe, and yabba dabba doo. But
Serendipity doodah?
Yeah,
that's pretty great.
That's what I call
That's
them.
pretty great.
Yeah, it's nice when it happens, but you're right. You got to do all the hard work.
Man, oh man, you have stories to tell, and you've told them so well. Thank you for this. This is
you're
just
welcome.
such a pleasure talking to you.
it's
Like
fun.
we can keep
Let's
going
do
and
it
going
again
Let's do
sometime.
it again.
Okay.
Serendipity doodah. Rick, thank you.
Thanks for listening. This has been Storytellers. Download the free Stingray Music mobile app and listen to the 97 South Song Sessions channel today. Stingray Music. Life's on you. Music's on us.